Hi, Mayor. Thanks, Mayor. This one only has one room. We'll get the player.
Get it going?
Gonna get it going.
All right.
I see you.
Ready to roll.
If I could have everybody's attention for a second, I would ask the following people to come stand up here in line behind me if you're scheduled to speak today. That'd be Mayor Langfelder, Alderman Gregory, Miss Clay, Pastor Franklin, Coach Thomas, Teresa Haley, Hillary, Pastor Mack, Dan Wright, and Matt Goulet.
You're going to say conversation. What? You're going to say conversation. Yeah. It's a crowd. Yeah, seriously. Is everybody going to talk? You'll be here listening without me.
I'm watching, Chief. I'm watching, Chief.
Can everybody hear okay? All right, we're going to go ahead and get started to be cognizant of everybody's time. I want to welcome everybody here today. I'm Chief Window of the Springfield Police Department. I'd like to thank everyone for coming out. I'm joined today by members of our community, representatives of neighborhood associations, faith leaders, education leaders, coaches, mentors, property owners, business owners, civic organizations, elected officials, prosecutors, and our partners in law enforcement. We are here united because our community has experienced an abundance of gun violence over the last few months, and our community is frankly fed up with it. The efforts and the tolls that these acts of violence have on our community are devastating. It is no coincidence that we are at this location today, across the street where one person was killed and 4 others shot just 2 weeks ago, where more than 100 people were in attendance at a party, at an event, but few have come forward with information in an effort to hold those responsible accountable. This senseless violence leads to a sense of fear in our community, a fear to let your kids out to play, a fear to take an evening walk or to go for a drive. It leads to people moving from our community, decreased home values, and harms economic development, which leads to a lack of jobs and poverty. However, in the large scheme of things, that is nothing. That is nothing compared to the damage it does on a family of someone who has lost their life to senseless gun violence. You may be thinking that I'm talking about the deceased or those injured by gun violence, and I am, but I'm also referring to those who made the fatal error and pulled the trigger only to end up spending the rest of their lives in prison. You see, those who are involved in this type of activity or close to it are also most likely to be the next victim of gun violence, because the cycle only continues until somebody is dead. To the mother or the father that will never see their child again, except on a t-shirt that says "Rest in Peace," or through the glass partition of a prison visitor's room. To the son or the daughter who will grow up not knowing their father. To the brother or sister who will never be able to laugh or share a special moment again. That's the type of devastation I'm talking about that gun violence has on our community. There is a lack of value for life in our community. In the past 2 months, we have had 16 people shot from 12 incidents, which is unacceptable. Repeat that, 16 people shot in our community in 12 incidents. Quite frankly, one person shot is one too many. Each time a weapon is fired, there's a chance someone could be fatally wounded. You may think you're just firing at a house or at a car, but you have no idea where that round is going to go or whom it may hurt. Bullets don't have GPS. Today is about demanding change and reaching out to those in our community who are in a position of influence over those involved in this activity. This includes parents, family, friends, associates. We are asking for their assistance in stepping up and helping us stop the violence. We need these folks to reach out and exercise that influence before another child or a young adult loses their life. Gun violence is a complex problem that no community has been able to completely resolve. But working together as one community, I believe we can have a significant impact. Not all, let me repeat that, not all, but the majority of gun violence in our community over the last 2 months revolved around 2 local gangs. And I'm calling you out, squads in BP. The criminal activity that they are involved with, to include illegal drug sales and gun violence, has to stop. While there are many factors that play a role in this senseless violence, such as perceived disrespect on social media or in person, jealousy, arguments over women and females, the bottom line, this is petty things. These petty things lead to violence in our community, and it has to stop. Our community is fed up with it. I'm asking our community to step forward and take an active role in this problem before more bloodshed or young lives are lost. Oftentimes, these individuals, even when victims, do not cooperate with authorities who are trying to assist them and hold the suspects accountable. They lie to us. They mislead us. Oftentimes, resulting in the suspect going free, only to commit another senseless act of gun violence. It's hard for my investigators or prosecutors to prove a case in court without a reasonable doubt when the victims refuse to cooperate. The time has come for our community to take a stand and say enough is enough. There are better ways to settle our difference than gun violence. Our young folks have value. I can't, and we can't, as a community, just throw them away. We can't give up. We can't throw in the towel. Crime thrives where and when the community does not come forward with information and witness statements. Perpetrators are emboldened when they know that people are fearful and will not get involved, along with the culture that we have to overcome of I don't snitch. Is that what we're going to tell our neighbors, our friends, our families when their child is dead? Yeah, that I knew something was about to go down, but I don't snitch. We're better than that. We're better than that as a community. We're better than that as a society. Today is about showing our community that we are united in holding those accountable for their actions and changing behavior. There are people in our community and people that are here today that are willing to help these people walk away from gun violence, from gang violence, before they become just another statistic. The message is very simple. The violence must stop, or you will be the next one killed or arrested. Parents, listen up. If your child is a member or an associate of one of these gangs, if they are a friend or a relative, or they date one of these guys, they are in inherent danger of getting caught up in this violence or being arrested as law enforcement is focused on these 2 groups, and we will hold them responsible. At this point in time, I'd like to invite Mayor Langfelder up for a few words.
Thank you, Chief, for the outstanding work you do, as well as the men and women of not only Springfield's Police Department, but all law enforcement that we have. Thank you all for coming today, especially Alderman Gregory and Alderwoman DeCento and any other council members that are here. As you're aware, the city of Springfield has seen a drastic increase in gun violence, especially this past month, that has resulted in the death across the street. The reckless disregard of life and public safety must stop and will not be tolerated. It is unfortunate that some of our youth and young adults have chosen to reach for guns as a solution to their problems versus turning and reaching for a helping hand of a caring adult or mentor who could help with a positive, life-saving conflict resolution. I'm standing with community representatives to say this is a citywide issue. This is not a police department problem or a neighborhood problem. This is a city of Springfield problem. This violence is a citywide issue that impacts all of us, no matter your age, where you live, or where you work. As such, there must be a multidisciplinary approach to end gun violence in our community. While the police will do everything in their power to stop the gun violence and arrest those responsible, we need the support of our community by having witnesses come forward and provide the vital information to make those arrests possible. We also need to support the police department's efforts through our justice system to assure those doing illegal gun activity and violence are held accountable and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. With regards to the pop-up parties or activities held like the one across the street, the City of Springfield will prosecute criminally and civilly all those involved, those doing the violent and illegal activities, as well as the party planners, attendees, and property owners. We have served a temporary restraining order on the property across the street, which could end up in fines in the thousands of dollars and possibly restrict their zoning. We are also broadening our camera system to include license plate readers and any other technology possible to enhance the police department's ability to apprehend those who are terrorizing our neighborhoods. Even with all these measures, the most effective way we can deter crime in our city and our neighborhoods is through community involvement. It is incumbent upon all of us, as individuals, as families, from all neighborhoods, all churches, all businesses, to come together as one community in full support of one another to end the gun violence. Thank you.
At this time, I would like to invite Alderman Gregory to come forward, please.
Good afternoon. I know there's many that will say, why is Sean here? Why would they have him speak? I know he has someone smarter around him to advise him not to. I want to first start out by thanking all who believe in me. I want to apologize to my community for allowing a distraction of any kind to take away from the important work that I set out to do. The reason why I'm here is to send a message to our young people and young adults to not make a split decision that will cost you your life or make you lose everything that you have worked hard for. We are better than this. And the only reason I came here is because I love y'all. Thank you.
Up next, I would ask Ms. Clay to please come forward.
I would like to say hello to everyone. It's a pleasure to see you all out here supporting us on today. And we're interested in getting our neighborhood developed, the community developed. Now, we are thanking the Lord that we have people that interested in getting this violence taken care in our neighborhoods. And this is something we need. And we are asking the help, from the police department and from the neighborhood. We need the people in the neighborhood to work with us. Because if they don't, we cannot get the job done. And we'll be having meetings at Popeye's Barbecue to discuss the matter with the community. And we'd love to have Mr. Pitts to come up and Dominique, their supporters in the neighborhood. And we just thank the Lord for them. And we're just asking each and every one, please support us. We have the district coming through. We have money coming through from the TIP department. We're trying to build up the neighborhood. We want to build it up so it can be nice like the West Side. And you know it takes a lot to do that. And we just want you all to support us and be here for us. And we just thank him for the Black Chambers, and we thank Mr. Pitts for the business across the street. He works with young people. He has jobs. He trained them how to work. So maybe some of these young people can come to his business, learn how to work, and get a job, and they won't get into trouble. So that's what I have to say. And also, we have been in the community 23 years, and I must put a plug in for myself, Clay's Popeye's Barbecue.
At this time, I would ask that Pastor Franklin from the Ministerial Alliance please come forward.
Thank you, Chief, and good afternoon, everyone. I'll be very brief in my remarks today. Some may not like the perspective that I have to espouse, but representing the ministerial community of the city, it's necessary for me to say that this is not a Springfield problem. It's not a black problem. It's not a white problem. This is a universal problem that we're dealing with. And it is a problem that we can't fix. The Bible says, except the Lord keep the city, the watchmen, our law enforcement officers, wake in vain. We have to be responsible for our own community. We have to not be afraid to wade out. I'm going to pull this down, to wade out into the community. The black church has been the glue of the black community historically, but we've got to come back out from behind the pulpits, out from behind the four walls, get out in the community and touch lives. So I'm calling on the ministerial community of the East Side to rise up to this very urgent problem that we're facing, and not as humanistic endeavors, but as representing the God of heaven. Because unless we can bring God to help us in this situation, it just gets worse. We need prayer. We need the churches to do what they're put here to do, and that is to be the voice of God in the earth. Apart from that, I simply want to say that I stand with our chief of police. I know him. I know his heart. He is one that is engaged in this. All of our officers, our mayor, our aldermen, we're praying for you, but we're not just praying. We do more than that. Whatever we can do as the faith community to come out and be a part in supporting this effort, we want to let you know that we're there. Thank you, Chief, for all you're doing.
At this time, I would like to ask Coach Thomas and the Coaches Alliance, Central State Coaches Alliance, to come forward, please.
Thank you. This is not really a reason that we like being here, but I stand behind me. I mean, the guys standing behind me, we are all head coaches. We got Coach Gully, the head football coach at Springfield High School. We got Tim Allen, the head basketball coach at Sacred Heart Griffin. We got Blake Turner, the head coach at Lanphier High School, and myself, my name is Lawrence Thomas. I'm the head basketball coach at Southeast. And the things that's going on, you know, they affect the kids that, you know, we see every day, not just our basketball players, but just the kids in the school that we see every day. It's senseless. I lost a player 6 years ago to the same kind of violence incident at Comer Cox Park. And I never thought that, you know, I would need to be in this situation again. It's really upsetting to us that these things are happening. You know, we have a chance of, you know, being with 14 to 18-year-old kids every season, and the kids that we see coming up in the streets right now, having homegoing ceremonies, funerals, are the same 14, 18-year-old kids that, you know, we see every day that in our line of coaching, and it's not a good feeling, and this is very unnecessary. We don't know what's going on with this. We don't get it. But the only thing we can do is try to lead by example and try to let these kids know that their lives matter, and that just gotta be resourceful and understand who you're around and who you run with, because we don't want to lose any kids, and these things affect our kids. You know, they're friends with some of these kids that a lot of these kids are, you know, falling to the wayside, and they're friends, and it hurts them too, and we can see it in their day-to-day dealings with us and us with them. So we just want it to be known that we feel this pain, we feel it in a major way. We see it in a major way. And we would love for all this to come to a conclusion, because it's senseless, it makes no sense, and it hurts a lot of people and a lot of families. And that's what we just want to be here in unison with the other coaches behind me to say that please stop this. We need better, and there's better options than what's going on out here right now. Thank you.
At this time, I'm going to ask Teresa Haley from the WCIA to please come forward.
Good afternoon. This is not Beirut. This is Springfield, Illinois. And I'm asking you to stop killing our children. When you see something, say something. We are doing a lot here in the community, and it's not even warm yet. I'm amazed of all the people from around the community who've shown up today. But where are you in our community here on the east side for Ward 2 and Ward 3 when things happen? Our kids need jobs. And if you are an employer, or if you know someone who has jobs, come work with the NAACP to make sure that we get these kids off the street, into the classroom, into some jobs. Because jobs save lives. James Johnson is standing here with me. A lot of us are members of unions. And we wouldn't be middle-class citizens without the unions. But like before, we know at one time the unions didn't want us. We know now in Springfield that sometimes the West Side doesn't want us. But crime happens everywhere. Bullets do not discriminate. I'm asking you, when you see something, say something. And if it's your child, turn him or her in. It will make life so much easier for you as a parent. It's a shame that I know so many parents who are afraid of their children today, but they are reaping the benefits from this drug money. Their kids have guns in the house. Turn them in before they shoot up your house. Is your life worth it? Is it worth losing your entire family to save one of your children that you know is out here doing wrong? Again, stop killing our children. We need jobs. Support the East Side. Thank you.
At this time, I would like to invite all the neighborhood presidents up. I know we have a couple of them in attendance. I believe we had Mr. Williams from Morning Bankhead come forward. I believe Michelle's here from Hollis Park, somewhere around here. Holly from Harvard Park. I believe we have Mr. Adair from Vaughn Park, somewhere maybe. I want you to hear from one of these people, and I'm putting them on the spot right now, but I want you to hear from them on how the gun violence affects them, how it affects their ability to live a normal life, their ability to go out and have a barbecue, their ability to walk a dog. So I would ask one of you, I don't care who, put somebody on the spot.
Yes. Good afternoon. So what I would say is that the Faith Coalition for the Common Good works with several residents throughout the city. But in the east side in particular, we are aware, we know that most residents do not like this and do not want this. But the things I'm calling on the residents to do today is to turn in their Ring cameras that's on their doorbell. There's so many little things that you can do to assist law enforcement. And it's not about being a snitch, it's about being safe. And I know the culture sometimes calls on, oh, we don't turn each other in and all that. We're past that. This is how dangerous it's gotten. So I would say for all neighborhood associations, we don't want that in our neighborhood. And just because it happens over here often, it does happen in all the neighborhoods, all across Springfield. Violence is a very very dangerous thing that if we don't put in check, it's going to check us. So I would say we can empower our communities through our neighborhood associations by participating. And I'm asking us to participate by using your home cameras and, like I said, your Ring doorbell cameras, and anything you see or hear, we have to turn it in. We have to assist our law enforcement to rid the violence that's happening, not just on the streets, but within our neighborhoods. So please support the law enforcement as they try to eliminate the problem before it gets worse. Roy Williams. Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to invite Hillary Warnsing from HSHS forward.
Good afternoon. My name is Hillary Warnsing, and I serve as the nurse manager of the emergency department at HSHS St. John's Hospital. At St. John's Hospital, we are a Level 1 adult trauma center and a Level 2 pediatric trauma center, which means we see patients with all kinds of injuries, including victims of violence. This year, we have seen a significant increase in our victims of violence. As medical professionals, we will do all that we can to help these patients in their greatest moments of need. However, it can be truly heartbreaking to see what is actually bringing these patients to our department. At St. John's, we not only care for the patients, but we care for the families too. Imagine having to tell a family member that their loved one is critically injured, or even worse, deceased, due to an act of violence. These victims we are treating are not just patients. These are somebody's child, sibling, parent, spouse, or friend. Caring for these individuals can have a significant emotional impact that can last days, weeks, months, or even years on those involved in their care. We always work with those involved in the care of these patients after an incident to help them cope, but it stays with you for a long time. The emotional toll of caring for these patients and seeing the emotional burden and grief that it places on their families can stay with healthcare workers for a very long time. This has been a year of uncertainty due to the pandemic, which has been mainly out of our control. But we need to focus on what we can control, and we can control our actions. Violence is within all of our control. So I ask on behalf of all of the healthcare workers at HSHS St. John's Hospital and beyond to make safe, peaceful choices and choose to stop this unnecessary violence for our community safety and for the emotional and physical well-being for all healthcare workers. While St. John's will always be here to care for everyone, no matter their healthcare reason, we stand beside our community leaders today and ask in this plea to stop the uptick of violence in our city. Thank you.
At this time, I'm going to ask Pastor McJunkins to please come forward.
I'm T. Ray McJunkins, lead pastor of Union Baptist Church, standing here in the heart of the community. There's an African proverb that says it takes a village to raise a child. Standing behind me, law enforcement, decision makers of this city, all of us, community leaders, we are the village. I just said something right there. We are the village. And for that reason, we have gathered together to come together to express to those who are listening, who will listen to or see this newscast, to understand that there are some things going on in our village that we don't like and we will not stand for. And the way we can handle that is by us coming together. This village celebrates at the birth of our children. But not only do we celebrate at the birth of our children, but we also grieve at the death of those that pass and go on. What we do between the time of birth and the time of death is in our hands. And where we are right now, as it relates to the church, the clergy, and each one of us, we can come together to celebrate with each other, but we don't have to rush to the time of mourning. It's important that we understand with all of the violence, all of the shooting that's going on, we can put a stop to it by appealing and reaching out. Someone came earlier and said that you should speak up. It's not snitching, it's not narking, but if you love your village, you will speak up and speak out, make it be known that we don't like this. This is what's going on. The sad thing is that when we celebrate at the birth and then we reach that time of death, the pieces are left here for the clergy and for the church to put together. As we tend to come together and give words of encouragement, words while emotions are going at the funeral services, I don't know about you, but I don't want to have to do anything that I don't have to do. And when death comes, we don't have to put up with that. We don't have to rush to it. And so while the gangs and while the shooting is going on, I'm asking the community, as others before me has done, as law enforcement has done, I'm asking the community to step up, speak up, and act like you are proud of the village and the community. We celebrate together, we mourn together, but what takes place in between there is in our hands. We can make a difference.
At this time, I would ask for the prosecutors in the audience, Dan Wright and Douglas Quigley, to please come forward.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. I want to tell you all that I'm honored to stand here today with this group of community leaders to stand in solidarity against gun violence. It's not just the people that you see up here today or those of you that came to this event. It's every single citizen in our community. We all have a responsibility to come together, to work together, to end gun violence in this city. But make no mistake, if you choose to commit an act of gun violence in this community, the Sangamon County State's Attorney's Office and our dedicated law enforcement partners will do everything within our power to hold you accountable, to put you behind bars. In a split second, the choice to resort to gun violence can impact so many, in so many unintended ways, tragically altering the course, not only the life of the offender and the victim, but their families, affecting mothers, fathers, sisters, and brothers. I have had the heart-wrenching task to speak to victims' families who have lost loved ones to gun violence in this community. And to hear defendants speak at sentencing hearings, some expressing remorse for a split-second decision they made that tragically altered the course of their life and the lives of the victim's family. But there's nothing that they can do at that point to take that decision back. The irreversible consequences of gun violence have ripple effects across our community. But it does not have to be that way. These acts of gun violence are not only offenses against the individual victims, but they're offenses to our entire community. And as a community, we want to send a strong message to young people today. If you choose to engage in acts of gun violence, that is a choice. You have a choice to turn away from gun violence. But if you choose incorrectly, choose to turn to gun violence, that choice comes with irreversible consequences. You may quickly find yourself in adult court, facing adult penalties, which can include up to life in prison. Let me say that again. Resorting to gun violence, taking someone else's life, can put you in a position where you will spend the rest of your life, or a substantial part of the rest of your life, behind bars. As this group of community leaders has made very clear today, gun violence is never the answer. The choice to fire a weapon can never be taken back. And as a unified community, we're gathered to stand strong against gun violence, hold offenders accountable, and support victims and their families. Thank you.
Afternoon. I'm Doug Quibby from the U.S. Attorney's Office. I just have a couple of things to say. First of all, where there is no hope, there is no fear. And unfortunately, too many of these young people don't have the hope. Racism, poverty, educational inequity, lack of jobs, all that causes this to happen. It's unbelievably unfortunate. It costs almost $40,000 a year to incarcerate one of our citizens. You go to prisons, it's a waste. There's these very smart, talented people spending the rest of their lives in prison over something that happened. It's up to each of us to give these young people hope. There is a better way. It's not an east side and a west side problem. I get so upset when I hear Springfield doesn't have a crime problem, it's only limited to a 6 blocks radius. That's just wrong. It's all of our issues, and it's up to each of us to give hope. Also to echo, if you see something and you don't say something, you're partially responsible for the next innocent person that gets shot and killed. It's that simple. And lastly, it doesn't give us any, professional joy or happiness, but the federal government, federal law enforcement, the FBI, the ATF, etc., we will use, and the professional prosecutors in my office will use all of our resources to put people behind bars who engage in gun violence for as long as possible. It's not fun, but there's a reason why, and the reason why is the only reason we can guarantee mothers and daughters and innocent people that lose their lives is if the shooters are behind bars, because they can't shoot people behind bars. Thank you.
At this time, it would behoove me that if I forgot to introduce some of these civic organizations that are in here today, that are out there trying to make a difference in our community, and I shouldn't say trying, that are out there making a difference in our community today. So at this point in time, I would like to ask Tiffany Mathis-Williams to please come forward from the Boys and Girls Club, Larry Hemingway from the Urban League and their Violence and Prevention Program, Interruption Prevention Program, and anybody else I might be missing here. Shelley from the Faith Coalition. So again, at this point in time, if one of you, I can't have everybody, but if one of you want to speak, please step up.
I know why we're here today and what we're talking about, and one of the unfortunate parts of working and having the privilege of working with so many youth in this community is that I lose them sometimes. And I know that we talk about prison and what can happen and the consequences, but we also forget to tell these young people that we still love them. I lost a club kid a couple weeks ago to gun violence, and it really hurts to see that because he was one of my jokesters and one of my favorites. And it was just 2 years ago. And to know that in the time span of 2 years, something happened to that young man to where choices were made and his life was taken from him is really hard pill to swallow year after year, watching young men, especially in our community, go to prison, lose their lives. I just don't want us to miss the fact that we should also be telling them, I don't care how bad things have gotten, there are people in this community that still love you, that look like you. And don't ever forget those that have mentored you and been there for you. There is nothing that you can do. For those of us who are really here to do the work, there's nothing you could do that you couldn't come to one of us and say something. And we will look out for you and take care of you and make sure that you're taken care of. You can never get away from community members that truly love you, and there are still those of us that love youth out here regardless of the decisions that they're making, because we know that that's a complex and very loaded situation at times, and people are coming from a lot of different backgrounds. But we love you still. I love you still, and I'm not afraid of you in my community when I'm leaving the club at 11 o'clock at night working and you're walking past me on the street. I'm going to ask you how you're doing. We could be better neighbors. When people move in next to you that you don't know, be a neighbor. Strike up a conversation. Ask them how they're doing. Provide them resources if you have access. People will do what they have to do sometimes, and it may not make sense to you. Be a neighbor. Be a community member. And let's get back to also loving on these kids and not saying that they're beyond help or support or love or not worth our time, because they are worth our time. So I just don't want us to forget that in the midst of all of this. Our teens still need to hear that people love them in this community.
There are so many of you out here today from our community. I recognize some of them from our friends and our sororities here, so I'd like to thank you all for coming as well. Our last speaker today is going to be Matt Goulet from Crime Stoppers. Matt, would you please come forward?
Good afternoon. For over 30 plus years, Crime Stoppers has been a very active supporter of law enforcement within Sangamon and Menard counties. To that end, Crime Stoppers is going to immediately begin an enhanced reward initiative. Crime Stoppers will pledge a minimum of $500 for any anonymous tip that comes in, which leads to the arrest of a subject in illegal possession of a handgun. Further, we are also going to offer $1,000 for any anonymous tip that comes in, which leads to the arrest of a person in illegal possession of an assault rifle or any weapon that shoots rifle ammunition. Now, these payouts could increase up to $2,500 depending on if those weapons are connected to any other crime. And any tip that comes in which leads to the arrest, any anonymous tip, I should say, that leads to the arrest of a homicide suspect will automatically be paid $5,000. Crime Stoppers has been doing this for over 30 years. It's a program that works, and we hope the fact that people can stay anonymous and still offer information that law enforcement needs will help stem the tide of gun violence. Behind me is Officer John Dorsey, our law enforcement coordinator for the program. I don't know if we have time for questions or not, but the best way to reach us is the hotline, 788-8427. There's a new app out there called P3. You can go to almost any Play Store and download it, and that also provides another avenue to reach out to Crime Stoppers. This is a great way for people to stay anonymous, and we have no way to track the information that comes in or track the caller or the person providing the information. So people can offer the information to law enforcement that we need, stay anonymous, and collect substantial cash rewards. So we are in this to win it. And any questions? Thank you.
At this point, I would like to ask my law enforcement partners to step forward. JW, Jack, Tom Dart. If there's any other of our federal partners are out there that I don't see, please come forward. The reality is, as strange as it may sound, we want to help. We want those involved in gun violence and gang violence to walk away. We know that isn't easy. We want them to become productive members of our community and live a long, fulfilling life. We want them to experience a quality life and be the best version of themselves that they can be. In closing today, it's about opportunity. Opportunities for our community to come together to help impact this problem. It's about options and choices. Options and choices for those who are involved in gun and gang violence to walk away. There are people here today, you have heard from some of them, I can speak for everybody here, that are willing to help those young folks walk away from gang and gun violence. They can provide the support and the service needed for them to be successful. We, as a community, have a comprehensive network of social services and individuals ready to step up to help these young men. However, and let me make this clear, the bottom line is the violence must stop, or those involved will be held accountable for their actions. At this point in time, I'll open up for a few questions. I know we've been here quite lengthy, so I'll start with Mr. Rushton. Go ahead, Bruce.
It had been reported that a number of weeks before the shooting that happened right across the street, neighbors were starting to complain about trash. There was been reported crime going on here. It's been reported that these parties are not that going on. In light of these sorts of, if you see something, say something, and also the pop-up parties that happen on the east side last summer, that were given fire marshal inside, some of the police inside. Why did it take a shooting before the police department of the city was here to notice it?
Well, first and foremost, hindsight's always 20/20. I'm not going to make excuses. We were notified by Alderman Gregory about some issues going over there with trash and other issues. Typically, when we have that kind of thing, we reach out to zoning to see if there's been a new owner in the building, a new business that's opened up, because we're not notified that kind of stuff. We tasked that to our neighborhood police officers, who made numerous attempts to try to contact the owners of the building to see what was going on there. 9 times out of 10, when we reach out to these property owners, they're cooperative with us, and they help us work through the issues and problems. No one knew that party was going on that night at my police department that I'm aware of. I know I did not know. Obviously, I was made aware of the past ones. So we were taking an effort to try to contact to prevent that. Since that time, though, the city has stepped forward. We've gotten a TRO against them moving forward. We've been notified of other parties that have popped up in and around our community. And when I talk to our community, I'm not just talking to the city of Springfield. I'm talking about all the donut holes inside, the unincorporated areas. We in law enforcement work close together. And these parties are continuing, and they are a concern for law enforcement. I know that we've shared some information with the Sheriff's Department. We've shared some information as of today with an owner where an event is supposed to go down this weekend that we are in court as we speak right now, trying to get a TRO to shut that down. So we will make those efforts when the people come forward to provide that information to help us move forward.
Question for the mayor. You can answer the street chief. Like, this is not, gun violence isn't new. The numbers have gone up here. This is unusual, have a news conference. To what extent, several of these incidents, correct me if I'm wrong, have happened in neighborhoods of, shall we say, affluence and influence. A lot more activity on social media. To what extent does that play into or put pressure on the administration here to stand out here today?
Not at all. You're right. Gun violence has been a problem in our community for years. In fact, if you look statistically, our numbers are down 38% in crime as a whole for Part 1 index crime over the last 10 years. We are down big time. But I think the inherent development of social media has more people talking about it, more people aware of it. It's been a problem for a long time. It's stuff that we address. It ebbs and flows. The reason we're here today is our normal average for the months of January and February, which are typically slower months for us, is 2.4 people shot in that 2-month period. As I stated earlier, we had 16 people shot through this 2-month period. That's why we're here today. It's got to stop. We have to address it. There's a lot of things that law enforcement does behind scenes, that community leaders do behind scenes to address gun violence that isn't always out in the public. There's stuff that I won't share with you about what we do, about tactics that we use, etc. The issue is right now, it's got to stop. The guns are flowing. We've made 26 gun arrests in the last 2 months. 26 gun arrests in the last 2 months. And for every gun we take off, there's another one. The other thing we're seeing, and that's why we ask Crime Stoppers to step up the reward system, is the assault weapons, the rifles, the .223 rounds that are becoming more and more common in our community. That's why we're here today. We are here today because we know across the street there was well in excess of 100 people in that building that saw who the hell shot that man, who killed that man, and they had to come forward. That's why we're here today. The police can't do it alone. This is a community problem, and we will work with anybody and everybody, but we can't do it alone, and no community can do it alone. If there was a secret to get rid of crime, there would be no violence in our country because every community would have already bought the recipe. So we are here today demanding you, as part of the media, to be part of the solution as well.
Mayor, have you gotten more public comments in the last few weeks because of these incidents? Have you had more pressure from the public to do something?
No, not really. Let's face it. Whatever happens in one neighborhood, we hear about it. So it really doesn't matter where it occurs. One thing I will say with regards to the shots, the enormous amount of activity, Chief Winslow predicted that when we installed ShotSpotter technology. We didn't even know how many rounds were going off at a night. But you can hear it through that ShotSpotter technology. It has helped help the police be more responsive, understand the situation they're going into, and that's what it's all about. But the chief's right. Pastor Franklin said it best. We've gone away from the churches. We've gone away from God. You know, and we need to get back to our moral values and our ethical values of being one community. I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and it was all about the we community. Too much, it's about me, I. No, it's we. All of us working together to stem the violence, to support one another, and so we can have a neighborhood, wherever you live, that we all want to live in.
Replacing what policy actions will the city be taking to aid the police department in stopping these parties?
Well, one is the temporary restraining order that we alluded to with regards to that. That's one of the purposes of this news conference, is to forewarn property owners. Everybody has to take responsibility. It's no longer acceptable to have dilapidated properties. We feel the pain. We finally have the financial resources. Ms. Clay spoke to the TIF area. It takes time to put things into place, but we are going to use everything in our power to go after individuals. Law enforcement will do it criminally. The city of Springfield will do it civilly. But beyond that, looking into the future, we need to look at technology. CWLP, all these traffic lights, when they are installed, upgraded, we have the ability to have smart technology with license plate readers, cameras, things of that nature, but it's going to cost money. But we will do whatever we can that the police force recommends to make sure all our neighborhoods are safe.
Chief, you say a word or two about ShotSpotter and how it's helped you out.
ShotSpotter has alerted us to problems that we didn't even know exist. The report rate that we get from the public is very, very low, and I don't have that number in front of me, but it's definitely not above 20%. I think it's well low that. I don't have that number. But what ShotSpotter does, it gets us there quicker. It gets us there to help aid those who were shot. It proves people wrong when they lie to us. When they sit here and they tell us that I got shot at this location, and we're like, no, you didn't. There was no ShotSpotter alert. Where'd you really get shot? It's an aid there. But what it does not do, it doesn't tell us what the suspect looked like. It doesn't tell us what the car description is. It doesn't provide that vital information that we need from the public to make it even more successful. That's what we need there. We have an underreporting problem. People, I'm afraid, think that since we have ShotSpotter, there's no need to call. That's totally wrong. We still need you to call. We need you to call, give what information you have. Because again, that doesn't provide that information. And that's some of the stuff the mayor talked about, technology advances. There's stuff we can look at by enhancing crime cameras and intertwining those with that technology. But that's time and money, and we'll get there eventually. But again, what we need right now, nothing replaces just telling what you saw, being forthright, and coming forward. And that goes for our victims, our witnesses. People are fearful. You never know what little piece of information you might have that is what we need to break the case. There's a big difference for law enforcement in knowing who's responsible for an act, because I hear that a lot of times from the community. Well, you know who did it. I may know who did it, but I cannot prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. And so therefore that case never goes to court until we get that one missing piece that puts us over the top.
Chief, you said now that it's happening now, other than the intangibles that people have talked about, community ideas and so forth. Is there a reason now it's happening now as opposed to last year or the year before?
Well, it's the influx that we are seeing. The influx we are seeing. This community averages somewhere around 46 people are shot a year. We've had 16 in 2 months. That's why we're here today.
Right. Why is that?
We're trying to figure out from the young people why that is as well. When victims don't speak, they don't tell you why they're feuding. That's the issue we're dealing with. And that's part of the information we need from the community today. Part of that plea is that you know your children, you know these young adults that are involved in this activity. We need you to come forward so we can try to broker a peace deal. We got people out here. I said the Urban League's Violent Interruption Prevention Program. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying out here to broker peace. That's what we're here. There are resources in this community to do that, but when people ain't talking, that's the problem.
Chief, you've said who's doing it. Do we know how they're getting the weapons? Do you have any leads on how these guns are getting into the community?
Every gun that we recover, I mean, the Springfield Police Department recovers more than 250 per year over the last 5 years. We e-trace through ATF. We have a new ATF agent who is assigned to our department to help us with that. We can find out where the guns came from as far as who legally purchased them and try to trace them back. A lot of them are stolen. Some of them are stolen in unlocked cars. Ever since we passed concealed carry, we've seen an increase in weapons being stolen from unlocked cars, sometimes even locked cars, residential burglaries. We also know that there's fraud purchases that occur in our community or around our community. We also know people who go to other states where they don't need a FOID card to purchase a weapon. So it's a complex problem. I can't say there's one way that it's coming in or not. I believe it's a combination of several.
Right, if two individuals didn't go fist fight in public and there's no complaining witness, can your office do anything about it? If it's on video, you're a part of it.
I'm not going to address any hypotheticals on legal issues.
Are you aware of Sean Gregory's dispatch on video that's recorded on WCIA?
And as I said, I can't engage in any commentary on hypotheticals or any specific set of facts. It's not the purpose of today's.
Somebody who said it's an elected official, they get special breaks. If I did that, I might sit in trouble.
I don't have any comment on any specific cases or sets of facts that are not the subject of any reports before my office.
Mr. Gregory here?
I'll take 2 more questions and we'll conclude it. Yes.
Well, with the code of conduct that was asked about, that's up to Corporation Counsel. The bottom line is, let's face it, if Alderman Gregory was just a regular person, this wouldn't be asked. What I appreciate is 2 individuals. It wasn't a good situation, and we can all assess how we want to assess it. Bottom line is, they settled it like I used to sell it when I was younger. You settled it physically. You didn't resort to gun violence. You didn't resort to knives, anything of that nature. What he didn't say, or what the cameras didn't show you, what happened afterwards or before. It's just the escalation. What happened afterwards is they got together and they talked and listened to one another, and they settled their differences. They decided to work together, and that's what it's all about. That could be exemplified as a way to resolve your issues. You don't resolve it by shooting up a building or shooting up a party. You resolve it by talking and listening. We all talk about unity and everything else. The big U we should have is understanding. Understanding one another and respecting each other.
All right, I'll take 1 question about the reason we're here today. If it ain't about that, we're done. So, 1 question, right there.
Okay. You've talked a lot about encouraging people to come forward and saying that people aren't coming forward and sort of, talking about this culture of not snitching. What are you doing in the police department? Are you changing any policies or approaching to encourage people to come forward?
I didn't catch the last part, but what we're trying to do, and one of part of our violence prevention plan, is we know that with COVID, we've kind of taken a step back on our community outreach, our community engagement. We know that we got to be out there and strengthen and build and better relationships than we already have. We know there's some trust issues out there. We know there's fear factors out there. We got to be out and about. We got to show people that we care and show them by our actions. That will help people become more comfortable with coming forward. And it can't just be me or my staff. It has to be the whole department. It has to be law enforcement as a whole. And the only way you do that is by getting out of your car and talking to people. And that's something that we would stress for all of our officers. Our NPOs do a great job. I can't tell you how many people call my office and say, Chief, I'll talk to you, but I'm not going to talk to none of your guys on the street. I don't want nobody to know. And I ain't testifying, but I'll point you in the right direction. And that's good information to have. That's from 27 years of relationship building in my career. And a lot of my officers have that relationship, but not all of them. We got new officers who don't have that relationship. We got to do better at that. So that's what we're going to do. Now that we've been living with COVID for a year, people are starting to get vaccinated. I look forward to being able to get more out into the community, more to our community engagement, and basically showing people the value in what a partnership can do. Knowing that we all have a role in this problem, and we all got to do our part. I'd like to thank everybody for coming today. Have a good day. If you're hungry, please stop and patronize the local businesses.
It's all good. Yeah. Thanks for
This is my part right here. The rest is yours. Yes, sir. Oh, here, no, this, yeah, you gotta take that.
We're gonna line up all the infields over there and just keep line that road. You know what time it We'll be over there too. I'm just saying if you got problems, I know you said I should be keeping the working good. Yeah. And I would say keep it that too, man. I mean, we just got a storm shelter out of Chicago. And one shell fire still in. Old boy saying he just shot in the air, but we're right. So yeah, I had ETF on the other day. We got stolen.